and welcome everyone to another episode of Audio Dopeness. I want to first start off by saying thank you to everyone who listened and who watched and left comments on last week's first episode of this podcast. I greatly appreciate that. And also, too, be on the lookout if you are a sports fan. I know sports are a very hit or miss topic. You're either really into them or really not. But be on the lookout. I would say over the next 2 to 3 weeks, to be on the safe side. I'm going to be coming out with a sports podcast with my brother. We don't have a name picked out yet. We've had a lot of different ones thrown around. And naturally, being brothers, we kind of haven't really seen eye to eye on the name in particular. Really not a problem. I'm sure we'll figure out one. But yeah, it's something that we've talked about for quite some time. And in the past, whenever it's come up, I haven't really been in the best place to commit to that, but it felt right considering my recent decision to really double down on content, on podcasts, on videos, on YouTube, and just trying to find creative-based jobs as well. So this felt like a great time for that, and it's also convenient that we both happen to get new computers at the same time. So just from a hardware standpoint, we really have no excuses. So I'm excited about that. We're actually going to be getting together tomorrow to record our first podcast. So that should be pretty cool. But as far as today's episode goes, I have a amazing discussion that I had with conversation. Discussion kind of sounds like we went over particular issues, which we really didn't. We had a conversation. My friend Nick Miller, who actually has popped up on this channel before, he is a wordsmith, a rapper, poet, however you exactly want to define it. He has a very amazing way with words. He has had a pretty rough go of it when he was a kid growing up, and he gets just a little bit into that with this conversation. But I actually met Nick through a job, the first job I had after I got let go from the radio station. I worked at a construction company in my hometown, and he was the first person there who really brought me in, and we had a pretty distinct connection the first day that we really worked together. And it was actually because towards the end of that shift, he pulled out his phone and he started rapping a piece that he had written. And what really stood out to me immediately about Nick was his amazing way to tell such an emotionally driven and personal story without any filter. And I think that is such an amazing quality in someone, especially these days. I feel a lot of people are very shut out from the world and shut out from other people as far as showing vulnerabilities, showing their struggles, their stripes, their demons. Nick has a great way of wearing those emotions on his sleeve as a way to connect with you as a real person, as opposed to, I think it's a very it's a popular thing these days to kind of signal a certain lifestyle and to signal a certain personality that you would want to eventually get to one day. And I think a lot of people might ignore or just shove down the real hardships that I think define them. And Nick is an amazing dude. He's very high spirited, high energy, and I had a blast being able to speak with him and just having him share a little bit about his story, about his motivation, about the things that make him tick, and just moving forward, where his mind is at. Because I said, he had a pretty rough go growing up, but in recent years, he has turned himself around quite a bit. The more that I learn about him, about his past, and about where he's at now, he's come a long way, and it was just an amazing opportunity to be able to speak with him on the podcast. I'd been talking to him for a while about it, since I met him at that job, and over the past couple of weeks, making this move to podcasting regularly and just creating more content, he was the first person that I had in mind, because I think his story and just his personality, his emotions, how he can relate to literally anybody that he talks to. I think if you're listening and you give the conversation a shot, I think there's something that you can pull away from that, as far as just the mentality that you have to have moving forward to be able to live the life that you want, especially considering where you may have come from, the trauma that you may have experienced in the past. So Nick is a great advocate on that front, and I think I think you'll enjoy this conversation. I know I did. I know he was feeling a lot better about his day and just in general, just being able to get a lot of stuff out there. And real quick before we do jump in, I just want to say, like, this conversation and like conversations that I'll have with other creators and just like other people that I get to meet and get to know and have known, like this podcast and what you'll listen to on this podcast is more introspective. It's going to explore like the human experience, human emotions, people's traumas, people's motivations. I think I said motivations twice. But it's going to be a lot more about like people and what makes people tick, and just like the bigger picture behind like what it is that we do. It's more about like why we do what we do and like why we are who we are. And that's not for everyone. I'm totally okay with that. But for me, this is a very cathartic experience. And for the people like Nick that I, will get to talk to, it's a cathartic experience. And at the very least, it's a great way to express your story and to put that out there into the world and to try and find other people that may relate to that as well. And that's what I really want to accomplish here. So if you're into it, great. And if not, there are a lot of other podcasts out there, and maybe that's not the best like podcaster move to like kind of say that. Basically saying like, if you don't like it, like that's fine. Like there are a lot of other things that you can listen to. I myself, I really like comedy podcasts too. So there's something out there for everyone. Just a fair disclaimer. Yeah, not just this conversation, but conversations in the future will be much more of like this style. Just like talking, like seeing where you're at and just getting like the bigger picture. The story behind the storytellers, to steal from Ryan Sickler, famous comedian. But anyway, this is my conversation with the real Nick Miller, and also be on the lookout in the description of this video. I will have a link to Nick's channel. Like I said, he's been on the channel before, but he has his own journey and he's documenting it on his channel as well. So I'll put that in the description. But without further ado, I hope you all enjoy this episode of Audio Dopeness and my conversation with Nick. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you're right. If you be consistent, and really just try to dive in on what you are and what you want, and believe in it and pursue it. That's right. It doesn't matter what's ahead as long as you're in the moment enjoying it, and I think that was always hard for me, to enjoy things in the moment, because I always thought of a lot of things as bad, like whether I was being judged or, I was just already in my own grief, or I was already in my own anger, just assuming things. And so relationships were hard for me, right? And, it's hard for me to be consistent in general, so even that today is tough. But when what I realize is being proud, right? Being proud. So I think that's where the belief and your proudness like work together. As long as it's not pride, and you want to like take, right? When you win, you want to feel some sort of like, I don't know, like, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Some
Yeah,
sort of
absolutely.
like,
Like,
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to say, like, it's almost like, ha, I'm first, instead of like, hey, good game. Like I want to be like the, hey, good game. Because it's what you need to do, right? And it's the right thing, and that's where like the belief and the proudness come together. I think that's what I'm trying to say. They can be powerful together. That's really what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And like as far as you go, what is it that like you think you these days like can latch onto as far as like beliefs? Like what motivates you?
Hmm, that's a great question. And yeah, what motivates me, uh, I guess being better than I was 5 minutes ago, right? Because every day's a battle, right? Some people wake up in it. Some people deal with it in their dreams. Some people deal with it in the grocery store. I mean, it's hard, to find that. And I think for me, it's always been like, what can I take? What can I get to even the odds of what has been done to me? And man, that really haunted me for years, and so I think it's the opposite of that, right? I think enjoying life. I think, I get so mad about the smallest things, but it's about like the check, right? It's about the mental check of like, wait, why am I a father? Why did I choose these things? Why do I have children? And it's funny, it's really humbling, just to have children. But if you don't have children, it's really humbling to be a human. Sometimes it was yesterday or the day before. It's like it's so crazy just to stop and listen. Like you hear the birds, you hear rustling, but it was like crazy. It was like almost an orchestra of nature. And you're like, holy cow, if you don't stop and take this in, like what wow, like we're missing out, like that's a good humbling moment. But I guess back to the question, because I tangent off, is I think it's just to be better for myself. And I think we have opportunities to do that now, every single moment. I think it's we choose either good or bad. It goes right back to sun and dark. Like it's just we can choose to be good or choose to be bad. And yeah, I guess my why is to be good. you know
And
like a,
honestly, Nick, too, like that's like since I first met you through
yeah,
like the job that we both had at that time,
yeah.
like I knew that that was a big part of like who you were, is like
Mm,
having a positive impact on other people. So that starts with being a better version of you. Like it goes like to that concept of
that's true.
like how can you love someone else if you don't love yourself? So not
Mm,
just in the context of like romance or even like love like between family members or friends, but just
that's true.
in a general sense, like
Mm,
how can you possibly expect to have a positive influence on other people if internally you're struggling to have a positive influence on yourself? Basically what I'm saying is like you can't be a good friend or influence other people unless you're a good friend and influence to yourself. So I think in your
mm,
case, having that mindset of like you just want to be better and do better for yourself,
mm,
that in a roundabout way will be passed down like onto your kids, like onto your wife, onto friends of yours, onto like random strangers that you meet. So I think
mm,
having that perspective in mind of like if I can be a better version of me, then that's going to have an effect on other people. And off camera too, earlier we were talking about that, just that idea of like having like you don't exactly know the effect that you have on most of the people that you'll meet, because most of the
yeah.
people that you'll meet, you meet them for like
Mm,
a minute in a grocery store, at a gas station, or just like on the street, right?
mm,
But like
mm,
everyone carries like their whole life story behind them, their own relationships, their own
wow.
motivations and goals and
Yeah.
fears and successes. So for that split second, like you said, you have a choice. You can either be positive or be negative. So
Mm,
your one action, like if on the
yeah.
street you're walking by and you're just like
Yeah.
mean mugging this person, that one little action can cause a
Mm,
domino effect that could lead that person to like feeling like, oh, what did I do to have that person like look at me all funny? And then
mm,
that translates to another interaction, into another interaction, and before you
mm,
know it, your one little moment in that person's life
mm,
has
mm,
actually had this way more profound effect on everybody. And
mm,
it's tough like to realize that, because like I was saying, like most of the interactions you'll have with most people are such like a short little fragment of time, but that little fragment amplified by like I don't know, is there like 8 billion people in the world?
mm,
Like that makes a significant difference. So I think just having that perspective of like, all right, I'm gonna leave as good of a mark on every situation, every moment that I'm in,
mm,
as positive. I'm gonna have as positive of interaction as I possibly can every moment that I can.
mhm.
I think that's just going to make you feel better overall and just have a better impact on other people. And I knew that about you from like the first day I met you. Like you wanted to have a good impact on other people. And your way of doing that was already coming to the table with like, dude, you're super high energy. Like not just like with work, but like with people like on the street or people like through your art, like you turn it up to 100. And that is a tremendous, like that's a pro because the average
Yeah.
person walk outside, like they have this like ho hum, like soft spoken, like it's almost like they're like trying to like put their emotions on mute.
Mm,
That is just a recipe for not feeling happy, not feeling good, and not even being able to allow yourself to feel sad. And I
mm,
think that's the real crime is like pushing down like all these emotions and just kind of living this life of not feeling anything, like for better or worse.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's our drive, right? We know that thought is possible. I think we talk about off camera again, I think it really took a counselor to say to me, none of my family members, nothing. Someone who had to go to school to learn about, you know, psychology, about how the brain works, right? And I didn't realize, like, when you're affected in different ways of like traumas, right? Your thought patterns become different and you assume them for a lifetime. It could be. You could be stuck in those thoughts forever, right? So we talk about our why. It's like, well, you don't have to be stuck. You don't have to be. Like, let me show you with my positive act. Hopefully, you will see that, like, I care. Right? Other people care. Like, always when I help people, like homeless person, doesn't matter who it is. I always ask, or I always go like, "Hey, my name's Nick. What's yours?" And because people's names are important. People are important, you know, and they deserve to know it just as much as I do, just as much as you do. Doesn't matter, you know. And I think it had to make me go to the darkest place, the total opposite of that thinking, to get to where I'm at, to understand the harm you do, and to kind of live with it, but have to accept it, forgive it, and just try to talk to those people and tell them you forgive them and work through that. And it was the thinking of just everything was bad, like it was just every situation I had to blame on somebody else or whatever. And it was when the counselor was like, well, you're angry because you choose to be. And I'm like, what? You're saying that, like, so in this situation you wouldn't be mad? No. Well, isn't it frustrating? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I choose to blow up. I had to take that self real check of like, holy cow, yeah, I just need to calm down. And once I started to work that and understand that and get better at that, that's when I realized, well, I can always be better every single day, because I can always fall back, but learning come forward. It's about not really trying to make those same mistakes over and again. But it's about being honest too with yourself, right? It's really about having a relationship with yourself. It's
And Nick, like you
yeah,
you bring up I'm glad like you mentioned the part about like even like if you see like a homeless person, for example, like you ask their name because their name matters. For
yeah,
some people like that may be listening to this, like that sounds like such that it might sound like, well, duh, like obviously like their name matters, but it's something that's so important because like I'll explain it like in this context. Like if you've gone to like a corner store or like a gas station or something and you see the person working there and they might not look like the happiest, like they might look like I could be in a better spot, like whatever it is that they have going on, right? If you
hmm,
realize that they might not be coming at like this brief encounter with you like the most positively, maybe they're looking forward to like just leaving, they hate their job or whatever, right? If you
right,
notice though, like even just saying like if they have a name tag, like saying like, oh, Samantha, like I appreciate your time. Like just saying their name, like
Right.
people have a natural like reaction to it. Like when I say
Mm,
Nick, like automatically your ears are going to perk up because that brings about like, oh, I'm an individual. Like this person is talking to me. Like I
yeah.
could be in a room of like a million other people. And like if they're looking at me and they're talking, like they're saying my name,
Yep.
now I am like number one on that list as far as like that interaction goes. And I think
Right.
that brings about the idea of like the individual is important because
Mm,
especially like these days, I think a lot of people can get caught in this thought pattern of like a pack mentality. So if a
mm,
lot of other people are feeling very negative and feeling down about themselves and they're
mm,
making that like their identity, other
mm-hmm.
people, because they don't want to be like,
I
they don't want to
see.
be like that lone wolf, they might start to
Mm-hmm.
identify with the pack as well. When in
Mm,
reality, by acknowledging like the value that an individual can have through simple ways, like even just saying their name at their job
mm,
and just saying like,
mm,
look, Chris, dude, I appreciate it, man. Like, thank you. And walking away, you're showing them that they have value as an individual. And once
mm,
people can realize that they have value as an individual, that's where they can start to make those changes for
mhm.
themselves. They're not going
Yes.
to be so like, oh, well, you know, it's normal for everyone to feel, to feel depressed and to feel sad and like to
Mm,
wallow like in their own pity. And
yeah.
it's, that's a fact, like that people do that and it's very unfortunate. But you bring about the idea of like you do have a choice. So when like you're
Yeah.
talking like to your counselor or to your therapist about like a certain interaction or certain moment in your time where you felt upset, you got angry over it, the point they were trying to drive across is like you are your own person. Like you have
Mm,
the ability to choose how you're going to respond to anything that's thrown at you.
mm,
And that's not to say that like you shouldn't allow yourself to be sad, but it's
mm,
just to give you that option always. Like some things are worth getting upset about, some things aren't.
yeah.
Some people, will have like disproportionate reactions to certain things that may happen to them, and it like equates truly awful things to like things that like you could have just decided like, all right, I'm better than getting too caught up on this little thing. Like
Yeah.
let me put my time into something more productive, not destructive.
Mm,
So I'm just glad you brought that up because I think that's like that's just a thing that's I think more people should shed light on is like everyone does have value. Like
mm,
I know social media brings people together, but that's not always a good thing. And
right.
especially like for younger generations, I just think like people are so like it's like the fad is like having like a measuring contest for like who has it the worst. And it doesn't
Mm,
need to be that way.
mm,
People need to realize that like they have more to offer like as an individual, like as their own. But to pivot from that, man, I know you mentioned like growing up like struggling with like how people may have perceived you.
yeah.
And as someone who like growing up, like I struggled with that as well, like having
Hmm.
just like self-image issues, confidence issues, and just really just worrying too much about how other people saw you.
Yeah.
How do you think, if at all, that's like changed for you now?
Mm,
Or
yeah.
like
That's a
was there something that you did over the years that got you to correct that like that natural desire to like constantly be like worrying about how other people saw you?
mm, yeah. So I think through high school, let me try to backtrack a little bit. So definitely through high school, I was that kid that would always just do anything anyone said to do. Like that crazy kid. I was voted to be in jail by the year after graduation. Um, and I thought that that was me, right? I assumed that that was me. People said that that was me, and so I tried to be that for a while, and I'm like, it's like this isn't happy. Like I'm not happy. Like I don't understand, right? And so I ran from my parents, did some couch surfing, and so I was in that really thought pattern of like I'm worthless, just really bare bottom. So it's just like almost homeless. Yeah, I was homeless, right? It really just man, buttered toast was great. it's those times it's like, I have to remember, right? So I was low, right? And so what happened was is that I had a bunch of warrants, and so I had to go to court, went to court, and I the judge let me go. I kind of had a backstory of like going with my brother, to do landscaping, which didn't work out, and I ended up coming down and still in this thought pattern, living with my uncle, and then I found my wife, and we kind of lived together, and we kind of had a relationship, and it really changed when I had children. I had to really be responsible for someone else's life now, which had to bring like all the things that I had to go through, right? So now I'm like, okay, all the other decisions that my parents have made, I have to make the same ones now. And like, do I want to be very careful, which causes me to overthink and sometimes get frustrated in general in the moment. So that's what I'm working on now. But it's not about people judging me. It's really about like why are they seeing me that way? And more like I want to hear about what it is, because it's funny, like the way the world works is somebody has value, everybody has value. That's what I don't get, right, like I talk to people every single day and they tell me things, I'm like, wow, I had no idea, right? But yeah, so it really changed just because I knew who I was, and I know people struggle and they don't make the best decisions because they've been in certain situations. So it really changed when I knew who I was, right? And what I can really do. And that's just make the difference every day. Just try to do the right thing. Act, don't look for praise. Don't just do you and try your best, right? And I've been, I struggle with beating myself up. It's just um something I have to work through. But it's funny, I was able to work through it earlier and feel proud of myself, and that's a great feeling. That's a great feeling. But yeah, I does that somewhat answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think basically like what you're saying is like over time you grew more self-assured and like who you were, but at the same
Yeah,
time like you had this realization that like other people are also going through their own things. So
yeah,
it would be foolish for you to to take those like those people that would like kind of maybe like I don't know about bullying, but like would kind of like see you a certain way and treat you a certain way. It was
mm,
counterproductive for you to like treat that as like gospel, as
mm,
opposed to like instead just being like, okay, well, look, I have problems. Everyone has problems. So I'm going to focus on my own problems and not overvalue the opinions of other people because chances are like if someone's coming at you a certain way over like
yeah,
over dumb stuff, that's a
yeah.
reflection of how they feel about themselves.
Right,
And
right.
yeah, like I'm glad that you summed it up with like just do you, man. Like I've always seen it, not always, I'll take that back. For like the last few years, I've begun to see it as like this sounds super morbid, but I like this is just how I see it.
Of
Like in
course.
the end, man, like we're all gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
And you could choose to see that as like a terrible, sad, like upsetting thing, or you
Yeah,
can see it as the flip side is like, okay, I don't know when that's gonna be. So
yeah.
why the hell am I gonna worry about how this person might look at me? Like they
Mm,
should worry more about how they view themselves. And I should be
yes.
doing the
Yeah.
same thing
Mm,
because ultimately, like it could be tomorrow, it could be a week from now, it could be 50 years from now. I really have no
mm,
idea. But
mm,
what I do know is I have what's in front of me right now, the energy that's in me. And
mm,
I've never felt good about like thinking about how I see this person or how this
mm,
person might see me. Nothing's good has
mm,
ever come from that. So,
mm. 100%.
like you said, bro, just do you. Like
Yeah,
focus on yourself and try and find like good people that you can surround yourself with,
yeah.
and like the rest is gravy, man. Like if you're more in tune with who you are and you're
Mm,
true to that, other people will see that and you'll naturally attract the right people in your life. So
mm,
if anybody's listening, especially like dude, because I remember like when I was in high school, I was
Yeah.
like, I was constantly obsessed with how other people saw me. And it
Mm,
like, I justified it with like, oh, well, that's why I have a good reputation. But in reality, like when I think back, like I was more stressed out about like maintaining a certain image. I didn't
yeah.
get to enjoy that time as much as I know that I could have. And that's
Right.
what it comes down to is like how you're expending your energy. If you're so worried about your perception of other people, your status, like how other people view you,
Mm,
that all that time that you could have been like truly building yourself and
mm-hmm.
like developing a skill or forming new relationships or just like learning more about yourself.
Yeah.
Instead, you wasted that time. And that
Mm,
is like one of the biggest crimes in humanity, I think, is wasting your time. Like, because that, man, like money comes and goes. Like we could go out tomorrow and like make $1 million. We could lose $1 million, but like in a week we'll still be there. Like that
mm.
time, it goes time, money, time, money. Money might even be way down there. Time is like primo, number one.
Number one. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
That's why it counts. Go ahead.
no, 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 you go ahead.
Yeah, no, every second counts, I think, to your point about death, it's like because I lost my mom at such a young age, and went through some traumatic things. I always said that I was gonna die early, and I said that to my parents, I said that to people, like, because honestly, I just wanted it to end, right? I didn't want to accept it for what it is and have to try, you know, because the pain was too much, you know. Uh, well, it was tough at 10 years old, and 11, 12, 13, 14. And, I'm 28, going to be, and taking a long time, but, it's like, you gotta, it's, it's funny you talk about time, right? Sorry. It's like, your father buys you the car, right? You take it out, you do stupid stuff, bow, 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 done, right? Total, right? Now dad's like, I can't get you a new car. Now you buy your own car, and now you're like super careful with it. You're super careful with it. And so what I'm getting at is like, we gotta waste time. Like, but if you don't smarten up, and the father would be you, right? Being like, hey, like you gotta like pay attention and do better, right? And be better with your time. And so we need someone else that does that, or it's just that repeated cycle. But yeah, instead of worrying about when I die early, like you said, it's about living in the moment and not really worrying about it until that time comes, right? And boy, I try not to think about it too much, but when it comes up, it's like I have to like process it, like that could happen, and just accept it and move on without really like bearing all that weight of what it is. Like it's gonna happen, like you said. I mean, when I ask people their name, I mean it's so important. It's gonna go, on their tombstone, or I mean it could be someone that they talk about for years to come. It's like your name is it's you, right? I mean you get to make it. So definitely, if you're listening, you're worth it, bro. You're worth it,
You
right?
know, I'm not sure if I've like mentioned this guy before to you, but one of my favorite artists, his name is George Watsky.
Okay.
So he is a musician, like spoken word poet, rapper. He's a
Yeah.
creative type of dude. He's done a lot of different like types of content before. Done content. Wow, that doesn't even sound professional. He's made a lot of stuff,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
But and he's one of my favorite artists, has been for a while. He has this song that he made like a while back. I remember when it like I first heard it, I was in high school, so obviously very like impressionable age, very
Mm,
uh formative type of time period there when you're in high school. But the song is called Write Your Name. So the hook
mm.
of it, the chorus is, why are we shy to be who we
Ooh.
all would like to be? Write your name so big and bold that the entire world can see. Although you can't undo all the pain that you've been through, write your name, write your name, write your name. And
Wow.
I'm glad you just brought up what you did, because like it goes back to like the importance of the individual. Like all the pain you've
100%.
been through, like all the terrible things formed
Right.
you as much, if not more, than all of the good things. And
Mm,
that is all encapsulated in like the story of Nick Miller or the story of Tyler Bizarro. So when
yeah.
you write your name, like it's not just something for people to call you, like that's a symbol. So
Mm,
this topic of like, you know, people's names is going to be like engraved in their tombstone, like forever
mm,
etched into like the story, like the story of this person.
right.
So I brought this up to you like last week on the phone, like the topic of like, you know, the idea of like you're at your funeral one day, right? Like
Mm,
having
yes.
the perception of like not what you think people will say about you right now, but
Mm-hmm.
what you would want them to say.
Understand.
And the
Yeah.
reason why, like, I know we just talked about, like, oh, don't think about what people think about you. Like, that, this is different. Like,
Yeah.
that's in the context of like random people out there that have no weight in your life, that you don't have a relationship with, that,
Yeah.
you know, they're not going to be at your funeral, basically. This is the concept of like your loved ones, like the people close to you. If they
Mm,
were, you know, if they were going to be there at your funeral, whenever that is, speaking about you, what are the things you'd want them to say? And that
mm,
thought process brings into play like, what do you value? Like, what do you want your legacy to be? Like, what do you
mm,
want the people that love you
mm,
the most at
mm,
a time where they're supposed to celebrate the life of you? Like,
mm,
what do you want them to say in that moment? What really matters the most? And I wanted to pose that question to you. Like, what's maybe one thing that you want when it's all said and done, like your legacy to be about? Like, what do you want your loved ones to say about you? And real quick, before I'll give you a second to think about it, if you're listening to this podcast, this is what this podcast is all about. Because I think there's so much stigma around having these tough conversations about like death and about legacies and about like self-image and just like all these things are like not well documented or well talked about. And I think it's a shame, because everyone dies. Like everyone goes through this. Everyone wants to have a bigger purpose and bigger meaning in their life. So how are we not going to be more talkative with each other about this, as opposed to like all the like dumb stuff people talk about these days that have no value in like a day, never mind like in 5, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. These things matter the most. So these, like, if it's uncomfortable to you, that's a good thing. Like you should
yeah.
you should be
Yeah.
seeking out these uncomfortable questions, because
Yeah.
if you can find answers for those, all of the little things in the day to day, you'll be able to, it's nothing to you. Like you'll be able to, if you can think of the answers to the hardest questions, easier ones will be nothing. And you'll be able to just like breeze through it and spend your energy on something that's more longer lasting. So
Mm.
I pose the question to you: what's one thing that you would want people, the loved ones in your life, to look back and reflect on and say, you know, Nick, his legacy was this. I
Yeah.
can start first too if you need a second.
No, no. Just real quick. Back to the questions. You want questions answered, feeling comfortable, real quick. We talked about it earlier as well on the phone. I listen to positive stuff, right? And I get a lot of, information, like a lot of positive affirmations, I guess, right? And info, right? About the way we think and how we operate and how we can be more efficient, with our thinking and with our day-to-day actions to help, and our eating, right? All that matters. But there's things that I don't understand, right? We talked about, and like, it's gonna take a long time sometimes to figure things out. But I think that's what my legacy is. I think it's like, yo, when you wake up, you don't lose hope. You know, I think if there was one word, it would be hope. Because that's what we all need, man. We need we need hope in each other. We need hope in ourselves. We need hope in our aspirations. We need hope in our actions. We need hope In relationships, we need help carrying groceries up. You know, it's a hope that says, let's just work together, right? And yeah, I just feel like that would be what I want, because there's always that purpose, right? Of what would be my legacy. Yeah, it's like you gotta know who you are to be something, right? And then you know it it just carries down together, right? And so if you're something, someone sees that, puts hope in themselves, and that gives belief. And I think that goes right back to the beginning of what we said, right? The first person you talk to, right? It's got to be positive, and it'll go down the chain again. It's just right, and that's the word, right? I mean, I didn't realize how easy it is to change a mindset. Like, I think we talked about this. Like, I was stuck. When that counselor told me, I can remember, I was like, I repeated it. I was like, wait, what? No way. I can't remember the words, but I was like, so what you're saying is, because I'm thinking like this is the way I'm acting? Yep. I'm like, whoa. So I just need to accept what that is, and use it to fuel me. Like, oh, okay. I do, like, almost accepting it, right? And that it adds a chain of events of positivity. Once you start accepting you and your actions and what they were, you start accepting yourself, you start accepting other people, you start accepting what it is. Now, understanding what you are to change it, and that is where hope comes in, and that's it, man. I'm Hope, Captain Hope. Call me Captain Hope.
Captain Hope. You know what's so I've seen these hats or like this merchandise in New
Yeah,
Bedford specifically. It's probably not a New Bedford exclusive thing. And for
yeah.
those listening, New Bedford, Mass is where we both were from. But Hope Dealer instead of like dope dealer, Hope Dealer.
No
Yeah,
way.
pretty
Oh
cool.
my goodness.
Absolutely, man. But
I like
I'm
that.
and I'm glad you said that too, because like we're talking about, like, everyone has their own things that they've been through, right? So
Yeah,
the idea
yeah,
of hope is like hope only exists when you're not only exists, hope primarily exists like when you're in those lows and when you
yeah.
acknowledge like you're not where you want to be. And
Yes.
for most successful people too, like there were plenty of times where they weren't where they wanted to be. So hope is just one of those all-encompassing themes that like everyone at some point is going to need to lash themselves onto that idea of like, no, like I can always do better. I there's always an opportunity to be better. So having
Mhm,
hope for yourself and
mhm.
acknowledging like, okay, I may not be where I want to be. I may not have like responded to the certain situations that were thrown at me in the past, but I have
Yeah.
hope that the next thing that's thrown at me, I will be better. I will make a better
Mhm,
choice. Like I
mhm,
will do better.
mhm.
So I think that's awesome, man. And amen. Like
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah. And
I,
and when speaking, like, hope can be hope needs to be like when I said, like, oh, I made that first kind of attempt. Well, it's like hope can be put into like the smallest things, right? Like, even like brushing your teeth, right? You're like, I can do 2 minutes. I can do 2 minutes, and you're like, nah. But then you're like, oh, hope I can do more, right? Or hope I can eat better. It's like every decision, if you use hope, it will power the positive. It won't, like, I'm not saying it'll guarantee, right? But if you have that, whether it's small or big, you can almost like just train yourself. And I guess hope is almost, yeah, hope, doing it, and then being proud. Like, that's a good, like, now that I think about that, that's great. That's great. So if I just look at it, what am I hoping for this? What am I hoping for this? Um, can you see me?
yep, we got you back.
Uh, what am I hoping for this, right? And and it's about accepting it, for what it is, right? That's almost like making a goal, a hope, right? You don't use it or achieve it, but you get close. So you just try again. But yeah, I just yeah, little tidbit.
Absolutely, man. That was very, very well put.
Yeah,
And I think for myself, obviously hope is like everyone should be hopeful. Like that's 100%. Like I hope there we go. I hope I hope at
yeah,
my funeral my loved ones will look back and say like even like in the dark times he was still hopeful
mm,
that like he'll figure it
yeah.
out and he'll be
Woo,
better off in the end.
woo.
The one word that I think I would use for
Yeah,
myself
yeah.
is it kind of ties into hope, um, is relentlessness. And it's
Mm,
like I think it's
yeah,
especially applicable like these days
yeah.
because in the age of like social media and the internet and like the age of podcasting, like just in the context of like for people that think that they can just like start a YouTube channel or like start a podcast, start a Twitch stream, and like they're gonna like be famous off of that. I
Mm,
think we're much more conditioned now to like see results immediately. And when you don't see those results, and maybe this
mm,
is a generational thing, when
yeah.
you don't see those immediate results, there's like this voice in your head saying, like, oh, why did you even try and do this? Like, you should stop. And I think a lot of
Mm,
people might give up on themselves or they might give
yeah,
up on a certain path.
right.
So I want I want people, in my life, like my loved ones, to look back and I want my legacy to be like, well, he never gave up. Like
Mm,
he had to like pivot and take a lot of different unexpected journeys, a lot of like
yeah,
all of a sudden got to do this now, got to do this now. But he always kept going. He was relentless.
yeah.
And for myself, like I've known that I've wanted to do something creative for like since I was like 14 years old. And I'm 25, going to be 26. And there's
Yeah.
always been like something that has tied into that creative desire in me. Whether it was like when I was just doing like movies and like in school, like in high school, like for projects, or whether I went to Emerson College for a very brief period of time, then I dropped out, then I went to Bridgewater State University for videos. I did my own YouTube or did a YouTube channel with another friend of mine at the time. Then I did my own thing. Then I like it was always when I failed, whether it took a week, whether it took a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year, I always got back on the bandwagon. Not the
Mm,
bandwagon. That sounds bad. I always got back on the wagon again. And I was never going to like completely give up with what I knew in my heart I was meant to do, which in my
mm,
case was videos, writing, was storytelling, just like what I'm
so
doing
good.
now. And
Mm,
at times life can throw you off that path, but if
yeah.
you're relentless, you'll find your way back on it. And I want that to be what part of my legacy is. And
Mm,
I thank you for sharing yours being hope. And I know like that,
yeah.
was probably like might have been like a weird question you didn't think you'd be getting today, but these are the types of questions that I want
Heck,
this podcast to be about.
heck yeah. No, that dude, it got me a question that stopped me in my tracks, bro. Like
Yeah.
question like that in a long time, and that's what I need. That's what I need. I need those, and that was a real good self check. Like, dude, what's the why? Or it's the reason. And like you see, it's like it all ties together, and these are all good mental checks, right? Of I'm in a good place, right? And to be proud, you know. And yeah, dude, I appreciate you sharing your relentlessness like that. That 100% makes sense, right? And yeah, I see you as relentless. And yeah, it's a life to be lived, and um it's just let's not waste it.
Amen, man. Amen. So cool, man. And as I mentioned at the top of this episode, when I was introducing this conversation with you here, I mentioned that you are a wordsmith in your own like. So I just wanted to like give you some time just to like share with the people who may be listening, like what what got you into music, what got you into writing, into like poetry, and like what does it mean for you, like to be able to write and have that form of expression.
Mm. Yeah, so definitely I just how it started for me, I remember as a kid my mom was really into music. And it's hard for me to remember any of my childhood, but definitely I always remembered the radio on at night. Like I couldn't fall asleep without the radio. And and then I love to sing. Like I love to like I guess I guess there's many grades of sing, but I wanted to like match the tone, I wanted to like try and do it. And I really loved it. And then I realized like, oh my goodness, these people are singing like their emotions. Like and like not only are they singing their emotions, like they wrote this thing with like words that came off their heart and where these things were coming from. And I'm like, wow, that's neat. That's cool. And and started to listen to songs and get an idea. And for some reason as a kid I always used to knew like a line ahead. It's funny because I'd like listen to the words and like before the word was speaking, I'd like try to speak it, right? You ever tried that with songs?
Hmm.
So I really tried to become good at that and like the tone. But then high school I got a guitar and started like figuring out chords, and I started like writing poems. Boy, I wish I had them. Probably would have been like, dude, what were you saying? But yeah, I wrote poems, which really helped. I didn't know what they were for at the time, but I really enjoyed them. And I didn't. How I came up with those rhymes was like didn't have any access to internet because I was grounded half the time. So like I used the alphabet. I just laid out the alphabet and just try to like rhyme the word that I wanted to with it. And so that's how that first started. And then I created a song. Um, you know, that that was for like women, so like I could get like a kiss, or maybe more. And I sang it to like I sang the same song to like different girls. And Anyway, so I was like, wow, okay, I got talent. But no, I just look good with a guitar, bro. And like the shit that came out of my mouth was okay. But then after that, um I really struggled with my mom's death. Like I really couldn't let it go. I was so vengeful and angry and misunderstood. Like I didn't understand. Like, it was just, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to live the same way. Like, people say, oh, you're gonna be an alcoholic, watch out, genetics. It's like, what the like why? Why even like have hope for me, Like, but or show the hope, right? I mean, express the concern, right? But show the hope too, but Yeah, so it really just wrote. I had to write a song about that and how I felt really compartmentalized, and I was really able to formulate something, and I wrote one song in a day, and then I wrote another song in a day, and then I started writing for my mom's song, but it took like 6 months because I wrote some of it, which was like the anger part, and then after I forgave her 6 months later, I was able to write the other half. But it's just like, man, you get to know who you are differently. You speak to you differently through that voice. um and I hope that comes out visually, because it's like when your heart and your voice are combined, like they can sing in tune. They can, like, I guess as cliche as that sounds, right? But they literally, they just, I don't, they fuse together. I'm trying to figure out the word, but definitely it's just like it's beautiful. And I just I found a way to kind of create stuff, and I love like messing up and trying to do things with my voice. And yeah, it's really good to talk with yourself that way, I guess, right?
Absolutely. And as fun as it is, like to write and to rap or like to recite poetry, like as fun as it can be,
Yeah.
it's just as much, if not more so, like it's a the word is like it's a cathartic way, like to experience like traumas or hardships or even like joyous moments in your life. And
Mm.
I think it's an awesome way to like process emotions
Yes,
for
yes.
like happiness, sadness, everything in between. And
Mm-hmm.
and because it can be so creative and engaging and like can sound appealing to other people, it's a way for them to identify in certain experiences you may have had or just like certain emotions you've been through. And that's the amazing part about it. Like that's the beautiful part, is that it's like it's a way for you to express yourself and to feel better about certain things that may have happened, but you're also attracting other people through like the art and like the aesthetic part of it, like how it may sound, how it may look. And it's a very magical way to like to share that type of experience that was once like just something you went through. You can have
Mm.
other people live vicariously through your experiences, through your art, through your music, through your writing, through your poems. And I think especially like in your case, dude, like you have a like this uncanny ability to convey emotion into like to tell a story in a way that other people can feel without even needing to like think about it. It invokes like such like a guttural response. And I
Mm.
think you have a tremendous gift for that. And I, yeah, man, like that was one of the first things that I remember, like when I learned that about you, like that day in the office that you just started like rapping, uh,
Yeah,
and you got emotional, like I was getting emotional, like that's what that's all about. It's not
yeah,
necessarily about like performing on the big screen or like on the big stage. Like it's about invoking that emotional response from people, whether it's one person in an office or whether
yeah,
it's like 100,000 people like at like inside of a stadium or something. So I
yeah.
hope you don't mind. I was planning on like ending the podcast with you like by playing one of your songs or one of your poems that you have up on your YouTube channel, The Real Nick Miller. And if you're listening or watching, if you want to watch along, that'll be on the video version of this podcast, and the link to Nick's channel will be in the description too. So you can check out more of the stuff that he's put up. So I hope you don't mind. Is that
Yeah.
cool?
Please, I appreciate it so much.
Of course, man. Well, hey man, it was freaking awesome talking to you. This was very I feel great. This was an awesome experience. I'm definitely gonna have you on more. Um, as Millie is like, even she's stretching the back. Look at her. So to close us out, like if you want to just like take a minute, just like is there anything you want whoever may be listening to this to like leave this podcast with? The floor is yours.
Yeah, I think you know, it's like it's as easy as waking up and visually giving yourself a hug. Like, hug yourself, love yourself, right? And just appreciate the quirkiness. Like, maybe people have a point when they're judging you. Like, maybe be optimistic about it. Maybe just laugh it off, right? And maybe that is true and you have to accept it. But I mean, is it worth your whole life bottled up, just worthless, just negative thought after negative thought? Like, we can get out of that. And I know you can get out of that. So don't let yourself down. And I'm speaking for myself.
Amen, bro.
I
That
appreciate
was
the floor, Tyler. Yeah, I appreciate the time, and yeah, man, I appreciate you too, and man, I'm so glad you're starting this, and definitely I hope you encourage others. You're encouraging me, that's for sure.
man, if you're the only person that I helped encourage, then this was a success to me. So everything else is gravy, bro. So thanks again, man.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
dope, and this was truly audio dopeness.
I love it. I love it.
All right, thank you for listening,
Thanks.
everybody. We'll see you on the next one.